your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Friday weekend edition. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, from the 10 Commandments to zombie government programs, some of these leaks. Should we defund Planned Parenthood and public broadcasting? And what about Canada being the 51st state, or Greenland being the 52nd state? Just a few things we will get into. And, of course, as you might imagine, we have a roundtable of guests here. Jeff Mateer, Executive Vice President, Chief Legal Officer for First Liberty Institute, Dr. Merrill Matthews, and in just a minute, I'll also mention Collin Lambert, who's been with us this week during Truth Team. But our first article, Jeff, has to do with the fact that they are now going to once again post the 10 Commandments monument in Kentucky. And the reason I thought it'd be worth bringing up is back in 1978, Kentucky had a statute requiring 10 commandments be posted in the classrooms. And this would be a commandment about 16 inches by 20 inches, paid for by private donations. But within 2 years, in Stone versus Graham, the Supreme Court actually said that that is unconstitutional, and even warned that if you posted the copies of the 10 Commandments, if it was to have any effect at all, it would be to induce the school children to read, meditate on, and perhaps even venerate the commandments, which I thought was a pretty good idea. But things have changed dramatically, haven't they?
Yeah, thanks to a couple wins at the Supreme Court that we got to be a part of it at First Liberty. We talk about restoring faith in America, and what happened this week in Kentucky is evidence of that. It's actually the legislature in overwhelming numbers, making it veto-proof, passed a law that would restore the 10 Commandments to the state capitol grounds. And so our client, who are the Fraternal Order of the Eagles, had a monument that in the early 70s they dedicated to the state, and it was placed on the capitol grounds. And then after that Stone versus Graham case, the state of Kentucky removed it. And it went into storage. And so I always think I have this image of, it's like the Indiana Jones movie where you've got the Ark of the Covenant is in the basement somewhere in the Smithsonian. I don't know exactly where the Kentucky 10 Commandments went, but it was in storage somewhere. And because of this new law, it's going to be restored. And what a day of celebration that will be, quoting an old hymn.
That's right.
Not as good as that day that hymn's referring to, but nevertheless, to me, it is evidence of restoring faith in America. And we're especially excited about it because it's fruit from two Supreme Court victories. First, upholding the Bladensburg, that tall cross that's outside Washington, D.C., that the Supreme Court upheld in 2019, and then our Coach Kennedy case, which says that this bad test that they relied upon in Stone versus Graham, the test called the Lemon test, we've talked about it before, Kerby, that created out of judicial whole cloth, created a test that basically was going to say anything that's religious you're not going to be able to have in public. Well, that test is dead. It's buried. And we're going to see in Kentucky evidence of that.
So, again, we are in our last day of Truth Team Week. Might just mention Coach Kennedy's going to be on with us on Tuesday, so we'll be talking about that as well. But we have in the studio with us all through the week Collin Lambert, and we're down to the last day.
This is it, last couple of hours right now, and I want to get everybody involved today. If you've been waiting, wait no more. This is the day. And here's your number, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. 5151, pointofview.net. We'd love to hear from you today. If you can give a one-time gift, a monthly gift, $30 a month is a great level, $1 a day. You might want to give a larger gift. We've seen 2 large gifts come in this morning, about $2,000, a $3,000 gift. But we're going to need a lot today, Kerby, to get to our goal. Our goal for the week, $150,000, and we're just about halfway there. So we've got about halfway to go. Again, that means everybody doing something on this special Friday edition of Truth Team Week. Pointofview.net, 800-347-5151.
Let's see if we can also mention in just a minute, we're going to hear from Jana Weidler, who is, of course, our Vice President of Stewardship. But I thought I'd also get your thoughts about this, Merrill Matthews, because when you look at some of these cases, you and I are old enough to remember when posting the 10 Commandments, that was forbidden. And now not only are we able to post them back in the classroom, but we're even actually able to have some of those monuments.
I'm old enough to remember when we actually prayed in class at times. That was a long time ago. And it raises the question because, as you mentioned, you have these 10 Commandments that are moving out there, and there are states that are looking at allowing these in the public schools. And I just have a question for Jeff. Are there other states that are returning 10 Commandments to the Capitol grounds at the state level?
We've not had a returning. We're certainly in conversations with states and counties that in the past have removed them or are going to restore them. What we did after the Kennedy victory, I actually had the team pull up every case. Kelly talks about this, 7,000 citations that cited that were Lemon versus Kurtzman, the horrible Establishment Clause case from the 70s, where it was relied upon to strike down, remove a public expression. Stone versus Graham is one of those, Kerby. And so we've gone through each of those, and we actually hired somebody on staff. Her job is to contact all those communities everywhere it's been, and we want to put them back. And so, if anybody's listening, go to firstliberty.org and look at the information on there, because this is a real opportunity.
Well, let's see if we can hear from the Vice President of Stewardship, Jana Weidler, and she wanted to come on, first of all, to encourage you to give, but also I think you have a challenge.
I do, Kerby. I'm coming to you right now with a very humble heart, but a bold spirit. And I've said before that I am on the Truth Team. I am a partner, so I do give monthly. But I just gave a gift of $100. And those of you who have met me know I love food. I love to cook food. I love to eat food. So this extra gift is going to be a little bit of a sacrifice for me for for next month, rather. But I can't keep asking people to do something I'm not willing to do. So I'm asking for you to encourage me by matching my $100 challenge. And Kerby, you and I and our producer Stephen and our President Warren, we have been all over throughout California and Arizona, many places in Georgia and South Carolina, throughout Peoria, Traverse City, Missouri, Arkansas, even Fairbanks, Alaska. And so if you have met me, if you have shared some food and fellowship with me or just met us for coffee, I'm talking to you right now. I'm hoping you will encourage me by giving and matching my $100 challenge right now.
All right. Well, Jana, thank you for that. That's a great way to get things started today. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. It's Truth Team Week. The legacy continues with your help, 52 years, and we want to see Point of View continue for many more years to come. You can help make that happen right now. Go online, pointofview.net, or go to 800-347-5151.
In studio with us today, Merrill Matthews, Jeff Mateer, of course, Collin Lambert, and we really need to hear from you. This is the last day. If you've been waiting for the last day to put us over the top, that's why your phone call at 800-347-5151 is so vital. Of course, you can go to the website, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Elon Musk is in the news again, but his comments this time are about the military. Recently, he posted that America needs a large quantity of long-range drones. He argued that anything manned will die very fast in a drone war. In a previous post, he shared a video of Chinese drones with the caption, "Meanwhile, some idiots are still building manned fighter jets like the F-35. This is a quick way to get criticized by certain members of Congress and companies that make up the military-industrial complex. But there are military strategists who believe we need to change strategies. An essay in the New York Times explores the idea of reimagining the American war machine. The war between Russia and Ukraine illustrates why the current administration wants to change the type of weapons the Pentagon buys. In Ukraine, drones of all types, from cheap quadcopters and radio-controlled boats to long-range attack drones, have radically altered the battle in the war with Russia. It's worth mentioning the speed of innovation. The Ukrainian military reportedly introduces drones with new capabilities every few weeks, and the Russians adapt and the Ukrainians respond in turn. We're entering into a new age of autonomous warfare. However, as I mentioned in a previous commentary about killer robots, we must not allow AI, robots, and drones to fight battles with little or no human oversight. Modern warfare is changing, and the Trump administration is ready to scrap a 20th century warfare mindset and swap it for a 21st century military. Elon Musk is not the only one being criticized about the military. We need to be prepared for the future. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
Hi, this is Josh McDowell. And you know, Kerby, when I think of you, there's several thoughts immediately come to my mind. One, you're one of the few who are so professional and yet so personal when you interview someone. It's a great balance. And so I just want to say the entire body of Christ is better off because of Point of View Radio on 45 years. And boy, for any of you listening, I'll tell you this. Financially, you can't do what Kerby's done over the years without some good financial partners. Invest in Point of View Radio, and you will never go wrong. God bless.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
Josh McDowell actually recorded a couple of years ago. If you're not familiar, he's having some health issues right now, and I think he would still say that after 52 years. But again, that's from a couple of years ago, but I thought that would be an encouragement. Just before I get an update, I just thought I'd mention, Jeff, that you were talking about that whole list. If you go to RFIA, which stands for RestoringFaithinAmerica.org, you have this whole challenge here of what each particular community can do. So again, when we see what you have done in the courtroom, you've opened the door for anybody in their local community to maybe have a 10 Commandments or anything else that was outlawed back when we had a Supreme Court that was much more hostile towards religious liberty.
Right. What we often say at First Liberty is when we can win court cases, and we've demonstrated that the last few years, but if we don't exercise the freedom that have been recognized in these court cases, then what's the point? So it's great to see what Kentucky's doing. Louisiana, there's bills in Texas. I mean, throughout the country, people are beginning to actually restore faith in America.
Well, again, anchored to truth. We're talking about Anchored for Truth, and because we're fifth day and last day. So what do we do?
Last day, it's time to call and get involved. If you've been waiting, this is the end of the week, and we need to hear from you today. Even just thinking about what we've started talking about today, news you're not going to hear anywhere else. You just do not hear these news stories reported, and you certainly don't get the facts if you hear any piece of it. You're going to get that on Point of View. And right now, we would love for you to really help us start strong with your best gift in these final hours. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. If you're giving monthly, consider raising your monthly giving, maybe a little bit, $5, $10, $15 a month. If you're giving monthly, you might consider a one-time gift for this week. That would be super helpful. And remember, it is a pledge. You don't have to have all the money today. You can say, hey, I want to give this, and I'm going to give it over the coming months. That's an easy way to do it as well. We want to make it easy on you, but we do need gifts of all sizes. The $10, the $10 a month, the $30 a month, even some more of those gifts of $5,000 or $10,000. That's the only way we're going to get to our goal today on this final day of Truth Team Week. 800-347-5151. Go online if you don't like talking to somebody. Sometimes I prefer just to go in, fill out the form. You can do that quickly at pointofview.net.
I might just mention, too, that some of you maybe are required, if you have an IRA, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, for what's called an RMD, which is a required minimum distribution. I've used that, and I know some of you have, so that's a great way to fund this ministry as well. And as we just mentioned, you can go to the website even while you're listening to both Merrill Matthews and Jeff Mateer. You can simply be listening and actually making your pledge, and we would encourage you to do so. But let's, if we can, Dr. Matthews, come to this one. Kim Strassel, we all know her. The leaky double standard, and the point she was making is, okay, we've got a disaster that's unfolded because of individuals using their phones on Signal.
Yes.
And I love her line in here. She says, quite aside from the security concerns, the episode looked decidedly junior varsity. National security officers are supposed to bring to mind situation rooms and Faraday bags, not group chats on unsecured phones. Here's a Faraday bag right now. I have one. I'm not even in the CIA. I have a Faraday bag. And, of course, you use that to also protect my wife from EMF and a variety of other things. But this is looking a little bit difficult for people in the intelligence community to say, well, we were just chatting on our phones about an attack against the Houthis.
Yes, it reinforces the concerns that were raised during their nomination hearings, that these people did not have the expertise, the gravitas, the background to be able to do these jobs. And this error looks like I can confirm that. Having said that, I'm so glad that it happened now, because if they had been doing this over China maybe threatening Taiwan,
yes,
something of that nature, which would be a really serious thing, because you have to know that China, Japan, North Korea, everybody's, Russia, they're all trying to listen in on these things. Our allies and our enemies are all trying to listen in. We do it with them. They do it with us. So you have to sort of assume that if you're on something like this, somebody's listening in who would take this interesting. And the fact they point out, well, it didn't stop this. I mean, apparently they didn't leak the information. If you're the Chinese and you're hearing this, you may not want to tell the Houthis this is the case, because it lets them know somebody's listening in. So I just think that was a real problem for them. She highlighted that, so I'm glad if we're going to make that mistake, this was a good one to make it on.
And this one also gets back to, Jeff, the fact that there's a double standard, because she points out another story. And, of course, and you were just in Washington, D.C. After a while, I want to talk about your conversation, this you can at least reveal, with the Speaker of the House. But the amount of leaks in Washington, D.C. are legendary, aren't they?
No, and I think she does a good job of pointing out, and there is a real double standard here, because in the case of this situation, the Secretary Hegg says that's a mistake. And look, I get it's serious, and you need to be. I agree with everything Dr. Matthews said. Not when I was at the AG's office, but in private practice, I remember thinking I was sending a message to my law partner and sent it to opposing counsel. The opposing counsel was very nice and said I deleted it. So mistakes can happen. But the more serious is when people deliberately leak sensitive, secret information. And I think she does a great job of pointing that out.
It's a good article, and certainly have high respect for her. I do want to hear from Warren Kelly in just a minute, but I thought, Collin, just remind us again, we're on our fifth and final day, aren't we?
It is the final full day of Truth Team Week, and time's running out. Literally, we've got less than 2 hours in the live broadcast, and we need to hear from you today. If you've been waiting, if you're a procrastinator like I have been from time to time, now's the time. You can't wait any longer. This is it. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net, and however you'd like to give, we want to make it easy on you. One-time gift, gift over 12 months. There's many different levels to give. We're not telling you what to give, but we can say this. To meet our goal, we're going to need gifts of every size today. We're going to need the smaller gifts, the medium-sized gifts, and as you said, Kerby, there's no limit on the gifts, so we can accept those gifts of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Not everybody is able to do that, but some of you are, and you could do that even now. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Might just mention those of you that have a computer can actually see what's going on right now, and I think we have more people around the table than ever. One of those is the president of Point of View, and that is Warren Kelly.
Thank you for letting me come in. I just wanted to give you a quick update. We started the week with a $150,000 goal, and we are now in our last day, and we're right at about the halfway mark. So we've got a little ways to go, but we definitely do need to hear from you. But we're very grateful. There's been over 200 people who have made a gift.
Thank you.
And we are very grateful for each and every one of you. But let me encourage you a little bit further. We have a lovely lady who loves the ministry, and she called and said she wanted to make a $20,000 gift and offer that up as a matching challenge. So right now, your gift will be doubled dollar for dollar up to $20,000, which will help us get to that goal a whole lot faster.
So again, there we go.
That's the
That's
time.
The largest
there
one,
you go.
Right?
That's the bell.
Yeah.
We're off
Ding,
and
ding,
running.
ding.
$20,000 dollar for dollar match on the board right now. That means every gift is doubled up to that $20,000. Gifts of every size right now. If you've never given before, consider making that first-time gift right now with your gift being doubled. If you are a monthly giver, again, consider upping your gift monthly or adding a gift to it. That will be doubled as well. 800-347-5151. pointofview.net.
I might just mention when we come back from the break, we'll get some inside information again because Jeff Mateer had a chance to be with Mike Johnson, who is a good friend of the ministry and actually used to sit in that chair he's sitting in right now, who is the Speaker of the House. And, of course, yesterday you heard some inside information about what was happening behind the scenes with everything from debanking to corporate wokeism. And these are the kinds of things we want to have you know about so that as you listen to Point of View, you say, I've heard that nowhere else, but I heard it on Point of View. As we go to a break, $20,000 match on the table, a dollar for dollar match. So let me encourage you to make that phone call, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Many of us like to give online, so let me encourage you to do that as well. You can go to pointofview.net, click on the banner that says Anchored to Truth. Pointofview.net, 800-347-5151.
Truth Team Week is almost over, but there is still time to join. We started the week with a goal of raising $150,000, and you can still help us get there by visiting pointofview.net. We can all agree that America needs a source of clarity to turn to in confusing times. Americans need a perspective grounded in God's Word, not in the uncertain and changing tides of secular culture. Americans need to have trustworthy facts and information so they can live, act, and vote wisely. In short, Americans need an anchor to truth, and you can help them find and hold on to that anchor by supporting Point of View. We need your support before today is over, so please join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net or call toll-free 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, and we certainly encourage you to give us a call, 800-347-5151. Of course, we have a match on the table. In studio with us today, Dr. Merrill Matthews and Jeff Mateer, and also Collin Lambert. Collin, you always can give us an update on what's happening.
Yeah, Truth Team Week, we've got a $20,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board right now. That means every single gift of every amount is being doubled, doubling your impact at this moment. Krista in Illinois, $50 is doubled. Eileen in South Carolina, your $100 is doubled. And Kristen in South Carolina, your $25 is doubled. That's how quickly it works. We just need you to move to the phone right now and start your call, 800-347-5151. You can go online to pointofview.net. As soon as you submit that, that's going to be doubled as well. $20,000 dollar-for-dollar match, 800-347-5151. The final day of Truth Team Week. Get involved right now.
Let me just mention, no gift is too small. Everybody will get, of course, this bookmark no matter what you give. If you give at the monthly level, you will receive the Outlook magazine at the $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year. You will receive not only the Outlook magazine and the booklets, and of course we have some other great resources there as well. So this is a perfect time to call. And if by chance, because sometimes we get a rush, you get a busy signal, just call back again, or even better, just simply go to the website, pointofview.net, anchored to truth, click on that button that says join now. I thought we'd come back to this for just a minute because we only sort of set this up. This is the second article, comes from the Wall Street Journal. Kim Strassel, who we certainly have high respect for, but she starts out, Dr. Merrill Matthews, by pointing out a supposedly secret criminal investigation. And sometimes these leaks are malicious. They are really not true. But when you have some anonymous person making up a story, oh heavens, if that would ever happen, that is another concern about these leaks, isn't there?
Yeah, and what Kim is stressing is the Russia collusion gate, the Hunter Biden laptop and so forth. I mean, these were, in many cases, these things are actually fake news or they are disinformation, meaning it's false, and then the media run with it. In this case, I'll have to say our Signal Gate people did not get much glory for themselves when they initially called this fake news and a hoax and so forth, because it's true. But it's true that it actually happened and it was a viable leak. So Kim is highlighting that. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, came out and she was, in her questioning about this, she referred back to the Hillary Clinton server that was put in the bathroom, which I'm a little. It's a long time ago. Hillary's gone. I'm kind of ready to move on for these things. But having said that, Kim is highlighting things where leaks come out and they are actually fake news and they are colluded by the media and promoted, and then that becomes a real problem because that haunted Donald Trump for years.
Well, and again, I wanted to come to Jeff Mateer because he had a chance to be with Mike Johnson, and I saw Mike Johnson the other day, who's just a genuinely nice guy. But at one point, you could get the sense his hair was almost on fire because he said this, and I'm pretty sure it was Washington Post, but one of the legacy media said this, and this, and none of it is true. Not one thing that they said is true, and it was attributed to people working with me, and it's completely false. And so just because you read it in the newspaper doesn't necessarily make it true, does it?
Yeah, and he actually mentioned an example of that, which I probably can't share exactly what he said, but it does prove the point that there was something reported, and he said, I know that reporter, and absolutely something he said was absolutely false. And so, he texted him. And so Speaker Johnson texted us like, what are you doing? And the response was, well, it could be true. Well, no, it wasn't true. Mike, Speaker John, to me, he's still Mike because he used to work for us at First Liberty, and of course, we've done a lot with him through the years. Some of my big takeaways, and I think some of our listeners will appreciate this. It's an extremely difficult job. Oh. I don't know if there's a tougher job in American politics today.
Herding cats.
Yes. Because he has no margin. because he has one member of the Republican caucus who will not vote for anything. And is not reliable.
Who's from Kentucky, but
who happens to be from Kentucky. And so anything, he will not. I mean, can't be convinced. Will not do it. And so there is no room. There's no room for error. He can't lose a member. And I will tell you, I mean, Mike is a committed conservative constitutionalist. But he's in a difficult position, and he's trying to actually do stuff.
Yeah,
it's easy to be on the outside and say, and we've had this discussion. Look, shut down the government. I mean, things that I've said, but in his role, that's not. I mean, he's managing a lot. The other thing that reminded, just being with him a short amount of time, he is centered, and his faith remains strong. And he has people in his life who are speaking into his life, and that's really important. But that faith is still he still has that, and he is committed to things that we really care about.
Sure.
We spoke briefly about the repeal of the Johnson Amendment, and Kerby, you know this, Dr. Matthews probably as well. The Johnson Amendment is what is used against churches from tapping them down.
Not the Mike Johnson Amendment.
Not the Mike Johnson. It's
Lyndon Johnson.
LBJ, which
good point.
Which to restrict churches from getting involved in political activities. We at First Liberty believe that it's absolutely unconstitutional. The IRS doesn't want to test it, so we can't get in cases where we've had a pure, straight-up legal challenge. It needs to be repealed. The speaker was pretty optimistic about that. I did get to ask him, what do you need? What do you need for us? And so I'll share this with our listeners. He said one thing, and he said, just pray for me.
Wow.
Just pray for me. So I think we need to do that. We need to continue.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, most difficult job in America today.
Yeah. And the good news is there's two congressional contests in Florida next week, which will elect two more representatives. Those will likely go to Republicans, their Republican districts. So he may have a little bit more breathing room. And Elise Stefanik has taken her name out of or withdrawn from the ambassador to the UN, which I assume was partly because they didn't want to lose that one vote in the House because it's just too thin.
Yeah, again, 21st Congressional District there in New York, and she was going to be UN ambassador. Instead, she's just going to be back in Congress. There's a lot more to talk about, but we need to make sure we meet the match, right?
Yes, we do. It's Truth Team Week, and we've got a lady that's been so generous in providing a gift of $20,000 to use for a dollar-for-dollar match. And that is up to $20,000. We're at $18,475 remaining of that. So still plenty of room for just about any size gift at all. And I always love to think of it like this. You go up to an ATM, you're getting out your gift, what you're going to give to Point of View. Say it's $100. You punch it in, your $100 comes out, and then all of a sudden another 100 comes out. That's exactly what you're getting right now. Now, I know you'd love to be a member of that bank. This is a make-believe bank. But the truth is that's just what this lady has done. She has said, you step up and you give your gift to Point of View. I'm going to add exactly what you gave to it. So every gift right now is doubled. Your impact is doubled, and you can help us continue to see Point of View on the air for years to come. Someone gave in the past so that you have the ability to listen now. You need to do that for this generation and the next generation as well. 800-347-5151. pointofview.net.
A lot of people say, what am I supporting? And one of the things that Jeff talked about is we need to pray. And we have a Pray for America. And every single week we give you a prayer target. I got a feeling Mike Johnson's going to be on the next one. We've had some on DEI. We've had some others even on this one this week on the Signal and the pray for those individuals in the intelligence community. So that's one element. Another one, in just a few minutes as we go to the break, you're going to hear Penna Dexter's commentary about whether or not not we should shut down the Department of Education, how we should do that, or could we do that? We'll talk about NPR. We're going to talk about 1,500 zombie programs out there as well. So you might say, well, I hear the radio program, but what else? And the videos we post, the material we post, the books, the booklets, all those resources are there for you. So let's take a break. We'll come back and certainly give you an update, and we'll get into some other issues because certainly there's been quite a bit of backlash to DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, but also there's been a real need on the part of many American voters saying, maybe the government is too big and it's maybe time to shut down certain parts of it. So we'll get into that robust debate as well. But as we go to the break, this is a perfect time to call 800-347-5151. If you don't want to make that phone call or you get a busy signal, just simply go to pointofview.net. You can make that pledge, and we would certainly love to hear from you, and we'll be back right after this.
President Trump has signed an executive order directing U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon to dismantle the Department of Education. The order recognizes the fact that the administration cannot shut down the department on its own. Congress must be involved. However, there is much the Secretary can do to begin the process of closing the agency. She is quickly proceeding to slash the Department of Education's staff by half, eliminating 1,950 positions. She has ended some of the department's smaller programs, including its research arm. She has scaled back the Office for Civil Rights. The Department of Education carries $1.6 billion in student debt on its books. The Wall Street Journal's Kim Strassel figures that this would make it the nation's fifth largest bank. The program has become an entitlement and is ripe for reform. President Trump has suggested it be managed by the Small Business Administration or the Treasury or Commerce Department. Secretary McMahon points out that test scores have been falling since the department was formed in 1979. She frames the task of shutting down the department as her final mission. In a column, the Journal's Kim Strassel says, "Never has a department been more deceptively titled. The reality is, our federal education bureaucracy takes no part in the daily, hard-fought grind of teaching. The department's only job," she continues, "is to act as the keeper of the education treats." The agency hands out about $80 billion per year to get school districts to comply with its directives, one of the most recent of which was former President Biden's transgender requirements. Until Congress sees fit to close the Department of Education, reform-minded governors should be tapped for expertise. Funding should be in the form of block grants to states and school districts, removing the conditions on how these funds are spent. Better yet, authority over how children are educated should fall to parents through school choice. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
This is James Robinson coming to you on behalf of Point of View. It's been my great privilege to encourage people to support transforming programs. Point of View transforms our thinking. The scripture that says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge," is so true even in our day. I believe that Point of View gives people as much knowledge and wisdom in a brief period of time as is possible for you to be exposed to. I want to encourage you to support this incredible ministry of wisdom and knowledge that is necessary to literally arm you to stand against the forces of deception and destruction. Please, I ask you from the bottom of my heart, support Point of View. Go online, make the gift, write a check. Encourage your friends to listen. They will get wisdom from above. Support this incredibly important outreach.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
James Robison, go all the way back to the days when he was just a traveling evangelist long before he had his TV show or anything like that, and have had a great relationship with him. And he is just, again, encouraging you to give to this ministry right now. And Collin, we hope to hear from the last individuals out there that have been listening and waiting to the last day, because we're in the last day right now.
We are in not the last days. Well, maybe the last days too, but we are in the last day of Truth Team Week. And we've got a $20,000 dollar for dollar match on the board right now. I want to give out some thank yous. Michael in Michigan, your gift is doubled. Gene in California, $100 a month. That's a $1,200 gift, becomes $2,400. Thank you for that. Linda in Illinois, Lana in Arizona, Nelson in Kentucky. Angelique clicked in online with $100. That's doubled. And Roxanne from California just signed up for that $30 a month. That's doubled as well. Every single gift right now doubled. We have $16,640 remaining in this dollar for dollar match. So don't let any of those dollars be sitting on the table. Use them up right now. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Do want to hear from you. And again, yesterday I mentioned the zombie government programs, and I thought I'd have a little bit of fun here with Dr. Merrill Matthews. And so again, we can remember when Howard Phillips sometimes would come onto this program and talk about the need for us to end the Legal Services Corporation. You might say, I've never even heard about that. Well, it was initiated in 1974. It was supposed to be reauthorized or then end in 1980. Sometimes we're supposed to have these sunset laws. It never really happened. And this particular article reminds us that we have about 1,500 zombie programs, meaning that they were authorized. They're supposed to be reauthorized. Now, sometimes Congress doesn't reauthorize, need to, because they think the program is working well. But anybody that thinks that there is no cutting that needs to take place in the federal government just needs to look at this article about these zombie programs.
I'm so glad you posted this, and I would encourage our listeners to go out and to look at this article, because it highlights, and I think it's from the CBO, the zombie organizations that were authorized at one time. There was a sunset date. This date passed, but Congress kept funding them. And so for the Legal Services Organization, the head of that says, we come in, we actually do what we're supposed to be doing. We come and talk to members of Congress, but they never reauthorize us, but they still give us money. And it's
it's just crazy.
It's hundreds of millions of dollars now. Some of these things started out very small, and then they become much bigger. And so, and the other reason this I think is so important is when Elon Musk came in with DOGE, they just started coming in and hacking everywhere they go. And I suspect some of those things are going to get turned back in the courts.
Probably.
If you had gone to something like this and said, here's a whole bunch of programs we don't even have authorization for. Let's cut the funding because there's no authorization. I don't see how you could take that to a legal court and get that turned around because there's no congressional authorization for it. So that would have been a great place to start, and people would understand that immediately. And he didn't do that, and so I'm disappointed in that. But we do have lots of areas of the government that need to be cut. They've highlighted some of them. Some cases they were wrong in some of the things they highlighted. But this is a perfect example of where we ought to go, and it's also highlights something some Republicans have mentioned, which is going to a zero-based budgeting.
There you go.
And that means we do an annual budget. You could go to a 2-year budget to make it a little easier if you're going to do that. But that means every department, every aspect of funding has to come back and get reauthorized every time Congress does a budget. Now, it would just swamp Congress with all the things they do, so maybe they would cut some of these things. But a zero-based budgeting would at least make them focus on some of these things that they've been funding that maybe shouldn't be around anymore.
One of the articles here talks even about the fact that there were some of these zombie organizations that were actually blocking DOGE people from coming in the doors. So again, sometimes they tried to do it, didn't get very far. Just one example. I used this yesterday because Collin and I watched the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. Originally, it received $339 million. Now it received $28 billion. And at this point, you can see Jeff's head ready ready to explode because once again, we're talking going from millions to billions of various agencies that aren't even authorized anymore.
No, and I think that's the point. I mean, zero-based budgeting is you budget based upon what you're authorized to do. These agencies aren't authorized any
to do
longer.
Anything. Yeah.
And it's about what the article cites 8%. So 8% of the total budget are unauthorized expenditures.
And it may be that if they go through and say, this one needs to be authorized, and they reauthorize, that's perfectly fine.
That's fine.
But the point is, you should be going through and looking at this. And Congress hasn't been. Congress has really fallen down on their role of managing the federal dollar, both in these aspects, but also because when they pass such huge legislation, they'll say, we'll just give the Department of Health and Human Services all kinds of authority to implement various aspects and to make decisions. No, Congress, it's your responsibility to do that.
Matter of fact, there's a case before the Supreme Court right now about the FCC. We talked about that the other day, in which they said this law was written in such a sloppy way that you've just given carte blanche to the bureaucrats who are unelected, unaccountable, to actually decide what they're going to do. And so maybe the Supreme Court will rein that in. But what we need to do right now, Collin, is talk about the fact that I've noticed one or two people that have been on the phones. Now they're waiting for the phones to ring.
We need every phone ringing right now. If you've got a $16,640 match on the board, which we do right now, you don't need to be sitting still. You need to be moving towards that phone and dialing 800-347-5151. We just saw that from Lawrence in El Campo, Texas, with a $1,000 gift. That becomes $2,000. So that'll drop us down to $15,640 to go. What is your gift going to be? It's the last day. If you've been blessed by Point of View, the Bible talks clearly about blessing those that have blessed you. If you've been blessed by the ministry, the outreach of Point of View, you use the tools and resources. We know that only a small percentage every year give to Point of View. Would you help us increase that percentage? Would you take advantage of this dollar-for-dollar match? Again, $15,640 available to you right now to be doubled. Whatever you give, it's doubled at 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Come back from the break. I thought we'd have a little bit of fun. Dr. Merrill Matthews has said, what would be the impact in the U.S. elections if Canada and Greenland were states? I think there's almost no chance of that happening, but it's an interesting thought experiment. What about the popular vote? What about defunding some of these other programs? And, of course, Penna Dexter's commentary on the Department of Education. An interesting back and forth the other day on, of course, national public radio and public broadcasting and the rest. So certainly a lot more to cover. But as many of you have indicated before, when we have such a great Friday roundtable discussion, nobody wants to call because they don't want to miss anything. So for the next 5-6 minutes, there is an opportunity for you to call and not miss anything. So can we really look maybe now for 10 phone calls during this top of the hour break? The number is very simple. It's 800-347-5151. If you've already given, thank you. But if you have not and you're on the sidelines, step up, give us a call. You can also go to the website at any time, and that is pointofview.net. Click on that banner that says Anchor to Truth. We'll be right back.
Truth Team Week is almost over, but there is still time to join. We started the week with a goal of raising $150,000, and you can still help us get there by visiting pointofview.net. We can all agree that America needs a source of clarity to turn to in confusing times. Americans need a perspective grounded in God's Word, not in the uncertain and changing tides of secular culture. Americans need to have trustworthy facts and information so they can live, act, and vote wisely. In short, Americans need an anchor to truth, and you can help them find and hold on to that anchor by supporting Point of View. We need your support before today is over, so please join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net or call toll-free 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I just wanted to tell you, too, how much I have appreciated Point of View over the years. I've always been taught that we take care of our own, and I feel like Point of View is one of our own because of the Christian worldview that you do promote. And so I have become a partner today, and I just want to thank you so much, and just God bless you for all that you do.
Listen, I wanted to make a quick comment. I'm a relatively new listener to the show, and I really kind of stumbled upon it more than anything because I'm doing some driving now that I wasn't in the past. And my comment really is, I think you guys and gals are more right on about the assessment of this country right now than anything I've heard. You know, I go home and I tell my wife, you've got to hear what they're talking about on the show. It's just so right on. And I tell my parents the same thing.
I'm 25 years old, and I started listening to Point of View about 4 years ago, and it has changed the way that I think and the way that I view the world around me.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Second hour today. Let's see if we can get back into some of the issues in the news. One of those articles, I think it's our fifth article, which is entitled Canada and Greenland by Dr. Merrill Matthews. It actually leads you back to his article in The Hill, The Impact of U.S. Elections of Canada and Greenland Were States. And last hour we were talking about some of the inefficiency of the federal government. Sometimes the argument is, well, if you go back to the state and local governments, they'll be more efficient. Let me take you to Los Angeles for just a minute. The mayor, Karen Bass, you might remember she was in Ghana during the time of the fires. They were promising, yes, and they were promising that they would do rapid rebuilding and accelerated rebuilding. If my count is right, it's been 80 days since the fires. The city has approved entirely 4 permits. So sometimes, whether you're the federal government or you're the local government, things aren't very efficient. But what about this idea, Dr. Matthews, of making Canada the 51st state or getting Greenland as part of the United States? You actually, like I believe it's probably not going to happen, but you did the math and said it wouldn't necessarily turn out the way Donald Trump might think so in terms of the U.S. elections.
Right. And you and I have remembered that occasionally they come up and say, let's make Puerto Rico a state. They do that every now and then. Washington, D.C. would like to have that status. And one of the reasons why Republicans have opposed that is because Puerto Rico tends to vote liberal, as does Washington, D.C. And you just look at the numbers in the last election. Washington, D.C. voted 90% for Kamala Harris. Puerto Rico voted 73% for Kamala Harris. And so what would Canada look like if we made that the 51st state? Because remember, President has called Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, governor. He's referred to him as governor. And so if you look at the parliament there, they have a parliamentary system. What does that parliament look like right now? Well, they have the Liberal, what's called the Liberal Party. That's 153 members. The Conservative Party has 120 members. So just there you've got the Liberals outweigh the Conservatives. They have the Bloc Québécois, which is from Quebec. They're mostly focused on trying to get Quebec independence, but they vote for right or left. But they have the New Democratic Party, which is a Democratic Socialist Party. That would be like Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They have 24 votes, and then the Green Party has 2 votes. So you put it together, and you would have a significant, just as based upon their parliament right now, you would have a significant liberal vote there for Canada. Plus, they would be attracting all kinds of new Republicans. Right now, the law is you can only have 435 members of Congress. Yeah. So if Congress didn't change that, you would have to take a number of congressional seats and move them up to Canada, and you're likely to have a very liberal vote up there. And Canada, if people say, well, Canada's just too large. Well, their population in Canada is about equal with California. That's right. It would be roughly the same there. So it'd be like adding California to the United States, and that would likely affect elections for years to come. Republicans, take notice. You don't want to bring in a lot of people who are going to vote for Democrats. And then Greenland has only got about 57,000 people or so. Their votes mostly tend to go around independence from Denmark and that type of thing. But they tend to be, they just got a slightly center-right government that they just elected, but they've come up and said, we don't want to be part of the United States, and use some language that I'm not going to use here on the radio. And when they just polled them, the Canadians do not want to be part of the United States. And in Canada, I think in Greenland, it was 85% said they do not want to be part of the United States. So it would have to be an adversarial takeover if we were going to get them.
Well, again, we just thought we'd get your smile on your face for just a few minutes, because these are the kinds of things that you will probably hear nowhere else except on Point of View. And Collin, we have a $20,000 match on the table, and we need to hear from our listeners.
We do. It's a great time as well. It is the final full hour of Truth Team Week. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Go online at pointofview.net. Your gift will also be doubled there. Some thank yous to hand out right away. Diana in Georgia with a $1,000 gift. That's doubled. Laura in Michigan. Miriam in Georgia. Tricia in Arizona. Paula in Arizona as well. Juan and Dawn in Texas. The Overton family in Georgia, and Cynthia. All of those gifts doubled just in the last few minutes. Here's what we have remaining on the $20,000 dollar-for-dollar match. $12,325. $12,325. So any gifts up to that amount will be doubled right now. Would you call? Would you be a part? If you've never given to Point of View before, how about this Friday being your first time to give? Whether you've listened a couple of weeks or a couple of decades, you can get your first gift doubled. 800-347-5151 or online at pointofview.net.
You know, we've talked about DOGE, and of course we even talked about Greenland. I'd like to ask Jeff for just a minute. You know, another one is this issue of deportation, and it does seem to me that that's kind of a big issue in the courts right now. Now, Maxine Waters was asked the other day who she wanted to deport, and she said first Elon Musk and second Melania Trump. But other than that, you know, I had to get your smile on that one. But again, we are having right now a real question about what can a federal judge do to affect the entire nation? Because after all, federal judges, of which there's 600 plus, supposedly have a region of the country that they're dealing with. But when you have an injunction, you had more injunctions in February against the Trump administration than over the entire 8 years under Barack Obama. You have 160 lawsuits as of last week. I think it's probably got to be up to 170 now. I don't think we've ever had anything like this before. This is unprecedented, isn't it?
And it's something like 70% of those in the history of the United States. 70% of those type of injunctions have been issued against the Trump administration. So it is, you know, we get accused at First Liberty, and others in the conservative movement get accused of forum shopping. Well, I think the Democrats have perfected the art. They know where to go. They know what, and it's really just a handful of judges who are issuing these nationwide injunctions, who are going beyond the parties in the case. And to me, that's the key. There could be certain situations where the parties in the case would warrant the plaintiff that might warrant a nationwide injunction. But I do think it's something that the Congress is going to look at. One thing that Speaker Johnson said is, you know, the legislative branch does have power over the jurisdiction of federal courts, and they can look at that. So I do think there are certain circumstances where nationwide injunctions are appropriate, but it's very limited circumstances, and it's certainly not in the number that we've seen just in the last 30 days.
We'll talk more about that in just a minute, but we're coming to a break, and that's another very good time, Collin, for some of our listeners to join with us as we come down to the last about 45 minutes.
Just a reminder that you can make a pledge today. If you don't have the full amount or any of it, you can make a pledge for the coming year. Just say, hey, here's what I'd like to commit to in the coming year. You can break up your gifts over 12 months, or you can give a one-time gift. Also want to remind you, if you're giving monthly right now, consider raising your monthly gift a little bit, or giving a one-time gift on top of your monthly gift. Again, right now, every gift is doubled. We've got $11,575 remaining. 800-347-5151.
Let's take a break, but again, we'd love to hear from you. Let's see if we can get 5 more phone calls during this time. Anchored to Truth, 1-800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Elon Musk is in the news again, but his comments this time are about the military. Recently, he posted that America needs a large quantity of long-range drones. He argued that anything manned will die very fast in a drone war. In a previous post, he shared a video of Chinese drones with the caption, "Meanwhile, some idiots are still building manned fighter jets like the F-35." This is a quick way to get criticized by certain members of Congress and companies that make up the military-industrial complex. But there are military strategists who believe we need to change strategies. An essay in the New York Times explores the idea of reimagining the American war machine. The war between Russia and Ukraine illustrates why the current administration wants to change the type of weapons the Pentagon buys. In Ukraine, drones of all types, from cheap quadcopters and radio-controlled boats to long-range attack drones, have radically altered the battle in the war with Russia. It's worth mentioning the speed of innovation. The Ukrainian military reportedly introduces drones with new capabilities every few weeks, and the Russians adapt and the Ukrainians respond in turn. We're entering into a new age of autonomous warfare. However, as I mentioned in a previous commentary about killer robots, we must not allow AI, robots, and drones to fight battles with little or no human oversight. Modern warfare is changing, and the Trump administration is ready to scrap a 20th century warfare mindset and swap it for a 21st century military. Elon Musk is not the only one being criticized about the military. We need to be prepared for the future. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
Ministries like ours depend on ministries like this one. We can win cases, and we do, at all levels of courts, even including the Supreme Court, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But if people don't understand those rights and don't put them into practice, then our wins will not mean that much years from now. And this is a way to have a conversation about them where people can learn more about them. And as I've said many times, you don't have to be a lawyer or a constitutional scholar, but you do need to know enough to know when your rights are being violated and when to come find us for help. And Point of View is invaluable in helping get that message out.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
Lathan Watts with Alliance Defending Freedom. First of all was with First Liberty, and both First Liberty Institute and ADF and others have said, when we bring a case to the courts, we get a lot of publicity. When we win, they don't talk about it as much. And, of course, I just pointed you a few minutes ago to rfia.org, because that's just a great opportunity for you to begin to recognize how you can be restoring faith in America. And that's just one of those resources that we actually continue to tell you the story, and we complete the loop, because in some respects, the victory then gives you an opportunity to take some action. But, Collin, we need to take some action right now, because we still have a match on the table, and I'm surprised that we haven't finished it off.
Well, we're doing well. We're not there yet, but there's still time. A $20,000 gift was put on the table by a lovely lady that said she wanted to urge others to give, and we're down to $11,115 of that remaining. So any gift right now up to $11,115 can be doubled. Connie in Ohio, your 50 just got doubled. Stephen in South Carolina, your 100 just got doubled. Paul in Illinois, your $50 got doubled. Yvonne in California, $100 is doubled. And Jeff in Texas, your $1 a day, your $360 gift was just doubled as well. It's that easy, my friends. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Let me just mention, as we've said before, no gift too small, no gift too large. And we're hoping that maybe some of those leadership gifts will come in as well and help us reach where we certainly would like to get, to the point where we can continue these programs as well. Let me, if I can, go around the table for just a minute and get some thoughts, because at $36 trillion in national debt, and in terms of the need for to eventually have a budget, even an idea of a balanced budget, wouldn't that be a concept? There's a lot that needs to take place. And I know that's one of the things that Speaker Mike Johnson is dealing with right now, trying to herd all those cats and get some of these things passed.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the goal. And, you know, the deal that was cut, I guess now it's been
9 years. It's 2017.
Yeah, 2017. That and the idea being, we need to be about attempting not just to curtail future spending, because I mean that's been future spending, but actually that needs to happen, but actually make real significant cuts. And I know the article that you posted. I mean, yes, let's get rid of. Do we really need PBS? I mean, I actually do subscribe because there are a couple shows that my wife and I enjoy, but does it need to be publicly funded? Does PBS, and I maybe bring out some folks on the calls, but I mean, do we need the public broadcasting system to be publicly funded? When we're not even close. We're not even close to getting to a balanced budget amendment.
Well, as the only person here who's actually been a commentator on National Public Radio in the late 90s and early 2000s, it's interesting because when Uri Berliner came out, and he was a longtime employee there, a guy on the left, and complained that NPR had just shifted so far to the left. And he's right, and I wrote about that in The Hill. I mean, I used to go in there and they'd go and do the recording of the commentaries and so forth, and it was, you know...
And Cal Thomas for a while did commentaries for NPR. And I've been on NPR, so have you. Yeah.
It was interesting because you and I have been in radio long enough. Sometimes you go into a radio station and you're in the entry room, you know, where they have the entrance, and then you go past that door, and it looks like it's a low quality looking place afterwards. I mean, things are old, diminished. Yes. WBAP in Dallas used to be that once you went past the.
I remember.
NPR is not that way.
Yeah.
It is a very nice building. PBS, very nice.
And we have the documentation for that on this article. Go ahead.
And I don't want to take anything from them, but it's 8% going to NPR. I think about 12% going to PBS. And the point that is made is they can probably get by without that funds, and I think that's probably correct. Others will step up, private charities and other things, and we'll probably hear more fundraising events on PBS where we hit the record and just go through the other things. But
fast forward.
It's probably time to cut the cord.
Yes. Well, and again, you mentioned two things. First of all, NPR, according to Senator Kennedy, $200 million facility where host makes $500,000 a year. Fresh sushi is artistically maybe for the diner's eyes in the company cafeteria. But then this one, of course, came from, I think it was it Pat Fallon? I think it was. The 87 editors at NPR, and 87 are Democrats and 0 Republicans. So, you know, there's a point in which the bias issue shows up, but also can it survive without it? And to actually have some of those around the table saying, well, is Big Bird or Bernie a communist, and all those kinds of lines that were used, was an attempt to just try to distract from the fact that it probably didn't make sense back when Lyndon Johnson thought we should have public broadcasting, but it makes even less sense when we're $36 trillion in national debt.
Right, and I think it's let's compare it. We're sitting here and at a point where we're trying to raise funds on behalf for Point of View, right? And how much, by the way, Kerby, do you all get? How much does the federal government give you guys? Yeah, absolutely zero, right?
DOGE will not be taking any back because we didn't get any.
That's right, and there is no if there ever was a need for public broadcasting for NPR, it no longer exists. It no longer exists. And especially when, as this article points out, 87 out of 87 editors at NPR are leftist Democrats. But that's what the mainstream media has. And that's why, point of view is so necessary, right? I mean, we have to have more than a balance, just an actual refutation that is a leftist agenda.
Yeah, and I will make a distinction. From the leftist standpoint, NPR is much worse than PBS. I mean, PBS has a lot of good masterpiece theaters. We love those. We watch those on Sunday evening.
Like I said, I have to confess, I am a supporter because we do watch those shows.
And I listen to NPR every day. And it has shifted to a far left thing where you just think, well, you didn't even mention this aspect of it, or you didn't bring anybody on this aspect of it, but you got to listen to NPR to know what the enemy's up to.
So again, I just wanted to bring that up. And again, we'll hear a little bit later Penna Dexter's commentary on the Department of Education. But you can't solve a problem if you don't acknowledge it's a problem. And for a long time, people have just turned a blind eye to the fact that we have up now $36.5 trillion national debt. And sometimes people say, we're not broke. I said, no, we're not broke. We're $36 trillion past broke. And we're going to have to address a lot of issues that you've talked about before. But we're also wanting to raise some funds, and we don't receive anything from the federal government.
No federal government money, no grants, no endowments. It all comes from you. This is listener-supported radio. You're able to listen today because somebody before you gave a gift in the past, and you're able to do that now. Also think about, we've had Liberty McCarter on this week, and she talked about how as a child she was impacted, even in those early days, by Point of View. Your kids, your grandkids can benefit from what they're hearing and ultimately might make an impact in their lives as well. What is Point of View worth to you? Well, call and give that right now. Pray and then call and give a gift. It will be doubled right now up to $9,055. That's what's remaining of our dollar for dollar match. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Online, go to pointofview.net. Click on the big banner that says Anchored to Truth.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to go around the round table, learn a little bit more about some of the cases First Liberty Institute is dealing with. Also, of course, you might even give you a preview of another article or two Dr. Merrill Matthews will be writing about. All of that is available on our website, and you can read a lot about that right now. But most importantly, as we go to a break, I know that some of you don't like to take any time away from the broadcast because you learn so many things. And let's face it, all of us around this table learning different things that are being expressed. So that's why I think this would be a perfect time to call. Again, you can go to the banner which says Anchored to Truth and click on that button at pointofview.net. That's a very simple way to support this ministry. But of course, if you'd like to talk to someone, it'll be very quick. 1-800-347-5151. Pointofview.net, 347-5151. We'll take a break. Be back with more right after this.
Truth Team Week is almost over, but there is still time to join. We started the week with a goal of raising $150,000, and you can still help us get there by visiting pointofview.net. We can all agree that America needs a source of clarity to turn to in confusing times. Americans need a perspective grounded in God's Word, not in the uncertain and changing tides of secular culture. Americans need to have trustworthy facts and information so they can live, act, and vote wisely. In short, Americans need an anchor to truth, and you can help them find and hold on to that anchor by supporting Point of View. We need your support before today is over, so please join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net or call toll-free 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, we're going to give you some prayer targets, a praise and a prayer target, and certainly some other things that we'll talk about in terms of First Liberty Institute. Also, another piece by Dr. Merrill Matthews. We'll get to that in just a minute. But again, I've noticed we had a number of people on the phones. Just as we come back from the break, everybody hangs up the phone, and I think that's the problem. People are not calling during the program, but we encourage people to at least go on the website, pointofview.net, and make their gift.
They come in little flurries. And
Yes.
so we're needing a flurry here for the last half hour of the program
Last
today.
half hour.
Laura in Alaska, who might be dealing with some flurries, she gave a gift. It was doubled. Margarita in Arizona gave a gift. Liberty in Texas and Glenn all gave gifts. Those were just doubled. We're down to $5,795 remaining in this dollar-for-dollar match. So we're seeing action. We're seeing people on the phones. We're seeing people click in online at pointofview.net. But again, $5,295 to go. It is the final day, the final minutes of Truth Team Week. We need to hear from you. If you've been waiting to help put us over the top, you can help put us over the top right now with your gifts at 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Less than a half an hour left, and if you've been waiting to that last hour, that last few minutes, we certainly encourage you to make that phone call. If we do meet our goal, that would be historic.
It would be. There's $150,000 for this spring Truth Team Week, and that would be a record. And so you can help push us to that record, but it's going to take, even in the minutes remaining, everybody doing something, everybody getting to the phone, giving a little gift, whatever you can give. It will make a difference in the lives of so many people through the ministry of Point of View.
Let's talk about prayers for just a minute. We always encourage people to pray for First Liberty cases, and you've got one where you've had a CVS nurse who actually has reached a settlement, so that's kind of a praise, if you will, a prayer praise. And then another one that I've been following for some time, if for no other reason than I used to live in Connecticut, and this teacher in Connecticut, in her workspace, has a very small crucifix, and you can see the picture, and there is retaliation and all sorts of actions. So talk about those if you might, Jeff.
Yeah, so first, I guess we'll go, you want to go positive first or negative first?
Whatever.
So positive. In a case that we had for some time, represented a CVS nurse practitioner out of Florida. CVS, after the Dobbs decision overruling Roe v. Wade, reversed a nationwide policy in which they had been giving their employees a religious accommodation to not have to participate in anything that relates to abortion. And so we ended up having a few cases across the country, one here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then one in Florida. The one in Dallas-Fort Worth resolved itself fairly quickly. The one in Florida was a little bit longer, and we represented just a wonderful woman, and I like saying her name, and Dr. Matthews, you'll appreciate this name. I can't spell it, but I can say it. Gunna Christopher's daughter. And so Miss Christopher's daughter objected and asked for an accommodation. In the past, CVS had given it, and they took it away from her. And so we were successful in resolving that and entered into a confidential settlement. And our client and we are very happy about that case. So that is a praise, no doubt about it. One that we need to pray for is obviously the Coach Kenny case and what we've been talking about. You can win a Supreme Court case, but you have to convince people that it's actually the law of the land. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, they're going to need a little more convincing. And so we represent a teacher who had a very small cross. You know, other teachers have other things displayed. You can have your picture of Tom Brady. It's Connecticut. They're Patriots fans. You can have Star Wars memorabilia. You just can't have, according to the school district, a cross. And and we raise the claim, how does the school district respond to that? Well, they said, well, we're going to take you out of the classroom while we investigate. They've been investigating. So they have retaliated against her. And so we went ahead and did file with the EEOC. We filed our federal lawsuit, in addition, claiming not just discrimination and based upon them forcing her to take down her cross, but also now they are retaliating. So that's an ongoing matter, and one that we would seek folks' prayers about.
Well, again, I just encourage you to go to the website. We have a link to First Liberty, and you can find out all those various issues, and just go to recent cases or press releases. You'll learn a lot of that as well. And Collin, again, I think we were just telling a story a minute ago about liberty, listening to the program. Think of all the individuals that decided to run for school board, city council, the legislature, Congress, even for the presidency, who actually started out listening to Point of View.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm here today, not that makes much difference to most people. I'm not discussing the big issues of the day, but I started listening to Marlon when I was a kid. Even before I had gotten into radio, I was listening to Marlon Maddox, and through the years with you, Kerby. So that is a great thing to be able to look back on and see how much I learned and how much it impacted my own life. So grateful for your ministry and what you do each and every day. In fact, we got a call just a little while ago from a lady in Arkansas. She says she literally just started listening this week, and she said, I had to call and give. And so she called and gave a gift, and she's going to let all of her relatives know they need to be listening to this program too. So whether you've been listening a short amount of time like this lady from Arkansas, or you've been listening a long time, how about getting your gift doubled right now? Because we've got a $1-for-$1 match on the board. It started at $20,000. We have $4,785 remaining. We've only got about 20 minutes left in the live broadcast. Can you be part of that $4,785 $1-for-$1 match? We don't want to leave any of that on the table. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Dr. Merrill Matthews, one of your articles has to do with, of course, the popular vote. And, of course, this time, Donald Trump won the popular vote. He, of course, won 7 swing states and the rest. But he sometimes makes it seem like this was just an overwhelming success and actually a tremendous mandate. But if I read through your piece, it's a reminder that we're still a very divided country, which I think also makes the case for why we need Point of View, because in many cases, you move a couple of votes around in Wisconsin, Michigan, a few places like that, it wouldn't look quite so overwhelming.
That's absolutely right. If our listeners can just imagine 100 people lined up, you draw a line in the middle and you move 50 over one way, 50 over the other way, and you take one of those people and move them over to one line. That's a 51-49.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump didn't get that.
Yes.
He got 49.8% of the vote. When Kamala Harris and those who voted for third-party candidates come together, it was over 51%. Donald Trump did not win the majority of the votes, and Republicans, since 1988, when George Herbert Walker Bush won the popular vote, only one Republican president has won the majority of the voters, and that was George W. Bush in 2004. He won with 50.7%. And it's very, very close. And Donald Trump says, he tweeted in a reaction to a judge, he said he won all 7 swing states. He did. But there were 5 Senate races in those 7 swing states. Democrats won 4 of those 5, and the one Republican who won in Pennsylvania just by 15,000 votes. And it's very unusual for a state to vote with for the presidential candidate and then go for the Senate in the opposite category. And that's what happened. North Carolina didn't have a Senate race. It had a governor's race, and that governor won. The Democrat won by 15 percentage points. So the point is, Donald Trump won. Given all the challenges he faced, he did a good job on that. But it is a very close race, and it may not be the mandate that he says that he has right now, because he didn't even get the majority of the population.
And that's, I think, back to the pushback that we'll talk about after the break, because in some respects, there has been this assumption that, well, I want all that so I can do anything that I need to. I think if there was a mandate, it was certainly to address inflation and to address immigration, the two I's.
Those are the two main.
And yet he's also had some D's, and that is DOGE and deportating, and so those sort of fit as well. But when you start talking about impeaching judges, tariffs and some of those, probably not as much. And so those are some things we'll talk about in just a minute. But Collin, we are really down to the last couple of minutes, aren't we?
We are, and we're down to $1,685 of that $20,000 dollar-for-dollar match that just dropped again. So $1,685 remaining. Any gifts right now up to $1,685 will be doubled dollar for dollar in the next few minutes. I would encourage you to go to the phones right now and make sure your gift is part of that dollar-for-dollar match. Go to pointofview.net, click on the big banner anchored to truth, or go to the phone and call us 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151.
As we go to the break, those of you listening on the computer will hear Penna Dexter's commentary when she talks about the Department of Education. Don't want to talk about that when we come back from the break. And we probably won't get final totals, but of course I'll be here on Monday to give those to you. But help us reach that total, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
President Trump has signed an executive order directing U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon to dismantle the Department of Education. The order recognizes the fact that the administration cannot shut down the department on its own. Congress must be involved. However, there is much the Secretary can do to begin the process of closing the agency. She is quickly proceeding to slash the Department of Education's staff by half, eliminating 1,950 positions. She has ended some of the department's smaller programs, including its research arm. She has scaled back the Office for Civil Rights. The Department of Education carries $1.6 billion in student debt on its books. The Wall Street Journal's Kim Strassel figures that this would make it the nation's fifth largest bank. The program has become an entitlement and is ripe for reform. President Trump has suggested it be managed by the Small Business Administration or the Treasury or Commerce Department. Secretary McMahon points out that test scores have been falling since the department was formed in 1979. She frames the task of shutting down the department as her final mission. In a column, the Journal's Kim Strassel says, "Never has a department been more deceptively titled. The reality is, our federal education bureaucracy takes no part in the daily, hard-fought grind of teaching. The department's only job," she continues, "is to act as the keeper of the education treats." The agency hands out about $80 billion per year to get school districts to comply with its directives, one of the most recent of which was former President Biden's transgender requirements. Until Congress sees fit to close the Department of Education, reform-minded governors should be tapped for expertise. Funding should be in the form of block grants to states and school districts, removing the conditions on how these funds are spent. Better yet, authority over how children are educated should fall to parents through school choice. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
Over the years that I've been involved in ministry as a pastor, as a seminary professor, and now in what we do, it was at one point difficult for me to ask people to support a ministry financially. I kind of had this idea that I was asking something from them, that it was in some sense a favor they're doing for me or whatnot. Over the years, I've come to understand, if you find something God's in, then giving them an opportunity to invest in that is a privilege. giving somebody a chance to join God at work, to give a gift that is going to be used literally to change lives and souls and to literally make a difference all around the world is a privilege. I want to be part of something like that. I want my life to count. I want to leave a legacy. I want to do something that matters. Point of view matters. Every day it matters. You're speaking the truth in love. You're speaking God's word, and it never returns void. And our listeners have an opportunity to invest in eternal difference if they'll do this.
Point of view, anchored to truth.
Back once again, and let me just mention that next week we will give you an announcement on exactly how well we have done. Next week, of course, we'll be talking with Joe Kennedy, and just mentioned that, Gary Chapman. Dr. Merrill Matthews will be interviewing such people as John Fund and Dan Pilla, and you'll be with me on Friday along with Penna Dexter. So there's a lot coming up next week, but we have just a few minutes left, and I heard a very large gift just came in.
Yeah, we're still waiting to get to that information. We are down to $685, I see, $685 in this dollar-for-dollar match. We'd love to hear from you at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Yes, down to the final 11 minutes or so in the hour. A critical time for folks to get involved because we're still trying to hit that overall total of $150,000. You can help us do that. 800-347-5151.
Just found out that we have another $10,000 match. And so $10,000, that is a match right now. So again, we have another match on the table, a match on a match.
A match on a match.
So again, even though we'll go off the air in just a few minutes, there will still be an opportunity for you to call, and we'll keep taking those phone calls throughout the day and throughout the evening if we have to. So again, that is a great opportunity. So another $10,000 match. You can add that to your computer right now.
So $10,685. Thank you for that person who just gave that gift, and it literally just came in just this moment. So still time to help us hit our goal of $150,000. Every size gift right now, so crucial in these final moments. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
One of the questions, of course, we've talked about NPR, but how about the Department of Education? Penna Dexter's commentary here. Dr. Merrill Matthews, as she points out, you have an executive order trying to shrink the size of the Department of Education, but since it was established by Congress when Jimmy Carter was leaving office, it would have to be removed by Congress, but that doesn't mean you can't reduce the funds rather dramatically.
That's right. You can shut them down or at least remove some of the employees, and that's going on in large numbers out there. They don't have a right. In fact, President Trump has signed an executive order to try to get past some of the unions that are part of the federal government. That was something that was put in by John F. Kennedy, in the 60s, even though FDR and others said government workers should not be part of a union. Kennedy needed some votes, so he signed that. Later, Congress made it a law, and now Trump is trying to roll that back, and I agree with that. I'm not sure that federal employees should be members of a union.
And again, I'd love to ask just a legal question. I look at my Constitution here, Jeff Mateer, and I see certain enumerated powers which are given to the federal government. The rest, supposedly, according to the 10th Amendment, are reserved to the states and the people, and I don't see education in that list.
No, education's not, but there are others as well, and perhaps we'll get to that. I think it does. It is everything directed to the Department of Education is going to eventually decide in the courts.
Yes,
and which means ultimately the Supreme Court. And so it does raise some interesting issues about, Congress authorizes something, the president is no longer is not taking the action that Congress authorized. There could be some constitutional issues there, although the president does lead the administration of his executive agencies. So it really interesting issue that again, they'll probably get some district court, probably in D.C., some liberal judge who will issue an injunction stopping all the dismissals. that will go to the D.C. Circuit. D.C. Circuit is will not be friendly to the Trump administration. So ultimately, it's going to be a decision that the Supreme Court will have to decide.
And I'll just say in that there's some sympathy for people who are just told you've lost your job today and now pack up and walk out. We can all sort of sympathize with people who do that. That's hard. On the other hand, don't be too concerned about their losing their salary. They had big salaries. It used to be the notion that if you worked for government, this was a public service and you were making less than everybody else. That is not the case these days. With the federal government, you're making a very nice salary, lots of benefits, lots of job protections. It has changed in that regard.
Well, again, I've said before, sometimes your anger is misdirected. If you're upset about the fact that certain individuals are losing their jobs, maybe you should be upset about the people who created all those jobs. If you're upset about cutting the cost of government, now maybe you should have been upset about the people that were spending all that money before. If you're upset about certain people being deported, maybe you should have been upset about the people that allowed them in the first place. So we'll see where that goes.
Just real quick, Kirby. I was in, as you know, I was in D.C., so I was in our D.C. office, which is a block from the White House. We're in this building, wonderful, beautiful building that houses federal agencies. And I think I've said before, I've been in there and I've never seen anyone.
Yes.
This past week, I saw people, and I was in the.
Did you see fear in their eyes?
I was in
the.
I have never gone into the restroom where there have been other people in there, and I was like, there are two other. They were gentlemen, which was positive.
Another difference from the Biden administration.
I literally thought I was going to ask them, are you guys working on your email for what the 5 things that you did this week?
Or sending out your resume.
Or that, yes. But there were, I've been there, going there for over 2 years at our offices. There are actually people working there now.
I know. And again, they've shown some of these videos just walking through, like the Small Business Administration. And small businesses had to come back after the pandemic, but nobody came into Small Business Administration. And Dr. Merrill Matthews and I have shared some stories walking through those halls in the past, and it's pretty amazing. But we're down to 2 minutes, so Collin, finish us off here.
Yeah, here we are with this gracious gift right at the end of this hour, $10,000 added to what was remaining, $10,370 available in a dollar-for-dollar match. Let me just say here in the last few minutes, call or click through 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Also, if you're listening to this on a tape delay, you're listening to it later in the evening or on another day on a podcast, those funds may still be available. So just keep giving. We'll give you updates beginning of next week. Kerby will be able to do that. Thank you to everybody who has given this week. Thank you to those who've provided those matching gifts. Those have been so helpful. And again, $10,270 now remaining in this dollar-for-dollar match. Let's see some big gifts come in here and wipe that out this afternoon or this evening. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Well, I say thank you to you for being with us all week. And your wife was with us for a couple of days before she had to head back, so it's been great to have you here. Certainly want to thank Megan for her help and Steve for his help as well. You guys, I really appreciate you coming in here. We will certainly next week have a chance to get everybody the full meal deal and have a chance to hear all of that. But thank you both. And Dr. Merrill Matthews, we've been doing this for many years, so it's great to have you here. And Jeff, again, I've always appreciated your perspective. If you would like to know more about First Liberty, if you'd like to know more about some of the articles by Dr. Merrill Matthews, those are all available on the website. But again, just as we go off the air, 800-347-5151. You can always go to the website, pointofview.net. Have a great weekend. March Madness, NFL and NBA and Major League Baseball. We'll be back on Monday.
Truth Team Week is almost over, but there is still time to join. We started the week with a goal of raising $150,000, and you can still help us get there by visiting pointofview.net. We can all agree that America needs a source of clarity to turn to in confusing times. Americans need a perspective grounded in God's Word, not in the uncertain and changing tides of secular culture. Americans need to have trustworthy facts and information so they can live, act, and vote wisely. In short, Americans need an anchor to truth. And you can help them find and hold on to that anchor by supporting Point of View. We need your support before today is over, so please join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net or call toll-free 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.